Welcome to Open Lid, the podcast from Honens where we dive deep beneath the keys and beyond the stage to uncover the stories, ideas, and artistry that shape the world of piano. I'm your host, Canadian pianist Philip Chu, and I'm so glad you're here because together we're going to explore conversations with artists, thinkers, and creators who remind us what it means to be a complete artist. This podcast is made possible with the generous support of Jeremy Clark and Wolfen Financial. So, if you're ready, let's lift the lid and begin. As president and CEO of CH Financial in Calgary, Jeremy Clark has built a reputation for helping people plan wisely with their money. And his influence, it's not restricted to the financial sector. It extends across Canada's cultural landscape, with Calgary being particularly close to the heart of this work. Among his other board positions, he co-chairs the advisory board of the Faculty of Science at his alma mater, McGill University, where he created a leadership fund to give scientists the tools they need outside the lab. And Clark has brought that same philanthropic acumen to Calgary's cornerstone cultural institutions, from the Calgary Philharmonic to the Honens International Piano Competition. In other words, he's a numbers guy with a big passion for nuance. He's clearly someone who treats art and science as essential investments. And today, we get to find out why. Hello, Jeremy. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm great, Phil. I thank you for that lovely introduction. I'm glad to be here today. I'll quote a I think it was just a Seinfeld quote years ago. It says, "When you say it all at the same time, it sounds like a lot." So no, thank you very much. Happy to be here.
You know, it's so fun. You know, musicians, we have these bios. They get printed everywhere, right? And every time it's read out loud and we have to stand in front of it, it is so embarrassing because you're right. It like hides all the things that ever went wrong. And it just makes you sound like some sort of god.
Yeah, exactly. You condense it all down, but it sounds great when you're there.
So Jeremy, what makes you put your hard-earned resources, your time, into culture? And what do you get out of it?
My general guidelines are, I want to be interested in what the entity is. I have good friends of mine who, for example, they will give a lot of money to the opera company, let's say. And if you ask them, they're actually like, I don't really like opera, but I do it for the societal benefit of having an opera in our city. And, you know, that to me is still a noble goal. And I would rather have them and their money at the table than not. For me, though, I really look at it like the interest for me comes first. It's the actual intellectual, artistic interest in the entity. And then dollars come after that. It's more of a curiosity. And then that leads to a desire to help where I can. I really try to be flexible because I'm a flexible thinker, and I have enough flexibility of my time, of my financial resources, that I don't really have to pigeonhole somebody or say that, you know, I need this, I need this, I need this. I really would like to listen to them and say, what do you need? And let's see if we can work together. And to give you an interesting story, this is from a few years ago, but because I've been doing things with McGill, as you've said, for many years, I've sat on a number of boards and committees. So this one particular event, the head of McGill Fundraising, who is a legend in Canada, huge staff, huge budget, he had me sit next to a woman, and I'm happy to use her name. Her name is Maggie Gilliam from New York City. Very successful investment banker in New York, and she likes art and music, but no specifics really. And so I sit down at lunch thinking to myself, okay, I have to establish some connection and figure out what does Maggie really want. And so she made my job easy because she said, Jeremy, these guys don't know what they're talking about. My passion is food security. And so she gave me this amazing synopsis of why she's passionate about food security. And that's really getting food, keeping food from going to waste, and keeping healthy food flowing to people that need it. And that conversation that day led to Maggie Gilliam now giving tens of millions of dollars to McGill, establishing a chair, continuing to support that, and doing huge things in the field of food security. And so really my conversation was not about dollars with her. It was about what is important to Maggie Gilliam. Why is she here today? Because I've heard some stuff. I want to at least make sure that's accurate. And she goes, none of that's accurate. Here's the real deal.
Listen to me. Yeah, now listen to me. Right. And you follow that.
Yeah.
You know, it brings to mind a question I have for you. There's so many societal issues that demand, that require help and focus. And where do arts and culture fit in there for you? You know, it's sometimes this, I feel like as a musician, as an artist myself, that is something that I wrestle with sometimes. I go, wait, why should I be asking for this money, or why do we deserve this? Like there's so many other needs right now. What's that like for you? How does that fit?
Well, let me turn the question around and ask it to you this way. If we're so concerned about food security and we want to make sure everyone has, let's say, a basic living wage, enough food, clean water to drink, and those are all valid things.
Right.
If you do that successfully, then what are people to live for then? And what you're there to live for are the things that bring you enjoyment and joy. Things like art, things like painting, things like music of any genre. I don't think you can just address these things all in sort of a checkbox fashion.
Right.
If you took away these things from societies, and unfortunately, there are many countries in the world that give us examples of if you take that whole sector, that arts and musical sector, and you decimate it, what happens to your society? And so to me, that's a quick road to the end of your society. So yes, it's important to have your basic needs met, but once those things are met, what is a life comprised of? It's not just going to work every day. There have to be things that are beyond that and that bring people joy and fulfillment.
What is your history with live music?
My first actually was growing up in the Detroit area. So Sarnia, Ontario, and Midland, Michigan are
Yeah.
North Detroit.
Hmm.
We didn't have a philharmonic in either one of those cities, and yet we did have a big hip hop and rap presence.
Yeah.
So Eminem, I mean, Eminem comes from right around where I grew up, and so my first real interest in music was probably hip hop, R&B, rap. The symphonic interest came later. Then my sister actually became a Broadway trained actress, so I really, really got into Broadway show tunes. But live music in particular, I'll tell you two things. The two examples of concerts that absolutely make me cry. Any of the Beethoven piano concertos or the Saint-Saëns violin concerto. If I listen to those live, I start crying every time.
You've credited mentors, big heavy hitter supporters and donors and hard workers like John Garreau, Dick Matthews at Calgary Phil, and how they instilled in you this sense of duty to give back, right? Talking about philanthropy at the start. So is there a particular lesson that guides you about where you put your energy and resources? And is there a particular lesson just about why you give and how you convince others to give?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because the way that I was mentored by those two gentlemen that you mentioned, and I would also mention Jim Stanford in there as well, who's been a huge mentor and friend. They were very challenging to me actually, in that they boosted me up at a young age to be on these boards, and they know I think I'm known. I like going out. I like having fun. I'm not a guy who's going to just be in the background the whole time. But all three of those gentlemen imparted on me a seriousness about what I was doing. And I remember John Garrow in particular saying, if you're going to come to a concert and invite all of your party friends with you, you better start being serious and giving money and getting involved in running this thing,
Right.
because otherwise you're just wasting time. And that worked on me.
Whoa!
Now I have yet to use that on somebody else to mentor them, but it worked on me, and it really kind of flipped a switch in my mind saying there has to be some sort of seriousness to it, even if you're having fun. And that's what I've tried to impart on younger donors and younger people getting involved, is that the fun will get you in the door. The seriousness, the sense of purpose is what's going to make this organization last for generations to come. And if you just come in and have a good time, is that a sustainable thing long term? And I really believe that giving of any level is important, and people should feel included and that they really have a part to play in this, regardless of their own financial capability. But if you have that kind of capability, I also think it's your duty to give a good chunk of that to things that are important to you. Otherwise, why are you building all this up in the first place? I want people to feel, again, like I said, that they're included, and that if they can give $100, great. If they can give 1,000, great. If their only gift is their ticket purchase, that's great too.
Mm-hmm.
But we want people to feel like they're included and appreciated. And I tend to believe
Mm-hmm.
you have to be really inclusive and listen to people, but you don't have to go out and be very, very aggressive about it if you do it right.
You've put so much work into like that fund you've created, the Executive Leadership Fund for scientists developing business skills. What have you noticed about arts and the business world? How out of touch are we, Jeremy?
Oh, I think that's a question that I think one of my good friend Amanda Smith, who's the CEO of this fine organization, hears. She knows the answer. Here's my broad answer on that. I think if the world is just run by business people, that's not a world I want to live in.
Right.
If the world is just run by artists, I don't want to live in that world either.
Right.
I think what's essential is that there's this interplay. And honestly, Phil, I had a great head start in life. My father actually was not only was it business and education and philanthropy, but he was also involved in government panels, which is another component. And he wrote this interesting paper years ago called Working in the White Spaces. And it's those areas between those things. And he's one of the best people I've ever seen at not being biased towards any of those entities and trying to work with all of them.
Hmm.
And I'm telling you, it is difficult, right? There are times where that self program that you mentioned, when I was doing the pre interviews for that years
Hmm.
ago,
Hmm.
I was talking to the most prominent scientists at our school and asking them simple things like, what's your budget for the lab? I don't know. If I gave you $10 million tomorrow, how many people could you hire? I have no idea. What's your policy about sexual harassment? We don't have one. And so there are certain things in business that every entity should have baked into it.
Right.
And I would respectfully say that an organization only run by artists or only run by business people is not the best organization it could be.
These days it feels like we have to be our own managers more and more. And so what are some like really critical skills that an artist should have when they're being their own business person?
I think understanding basic accounting, as
Yeah.
in how much am I taking in and how much am I spending?
Right.
And I also believe, and I think I've done this to almost extreme degree in my life, but not being overly reliant on one person or group or another. I've
Hmm.
seen artists in the past where they get the agent they've always wanted, and now all of a sudden that agent becomes everything to them, and they're the gatekeeper, and they're the this and that. That person has total control over you,
Right.
and I would never want someone to have total control over me, even if it's an agent or maybe you have a really good CEO who believes in you. Don't be overly reliant on one powerful person and think that's going to make your career.
You're very open about nearly having flunked out of McGill. You're very open about failure in your life. What are your thoughts about failure, and what are your thoughts? You perfectly led into it about risk and when to take risks and how to gauge failure. Because let's face it, we have 10 semifinalists coming to Honens, and the system now is such that we will have one winner and 9 who aren't. What should they take away from these moments?
I would actually say to you that the one I would worry about most is probably the winner because you're showered with a lot of stuff that's going to elevate your life to a level that is beyond where you are right now.
Hmm.
And the nine finalists are probably going to go back to still a pretty reasonable life. I'm a competitive tennis player as well, and I've also been doing stand-up comedy over the past year, so I know what it's like to be up on stage and on a court and having a bad night. But what I find helpful is if you can separate your being from you, the performer, as much as possible. And how am I doing realistically? And so if someone says to you after, like, hey, that joke sucked, or you won the first set 6-1, then you lost the match, how's that possible? Here's what happened, technically. Here's what I think happened. Um, you're not saying I failed. You're saying it didn't go the way that I planned, but I've learned from this and that learning is going to be seared into my brain for next time. And it's so what it does is I think it takes the bitterness out and
Hmm.
it takes the emotion out as much as possible. You got to look at how was my performance and what did I like about it first of all, and what could I have improved upon, which I'll do next time. So to me, and this is very helpful for especially in the financial profession where everyone is chasing a number. If what you're focused on is continuous improvement, you're never going to fail. Failure is a part of progressing. And if you can take joy in the craft and the progression, you're never actually going to fail.
It's perfect, Jeremy. If you could remove a single piece of classical music from existence, something you're actually kind of tired of hearing and never really liked and find people talk about all the time, what would that be?
Oh, this is a tough one. Well, actually, okay, okay. I do have an answer for you. I would say to you, take the longest Mahler symphony and reduce it by about 40%. Get rid of 40% of that, whatever the longest one is.
If someone's going to attend Honens for the first time as an audience member, what do you hope that their takeaway will be? What do you hope they're going to get out of that experience?
I think if you're coming to this thinking this is some sort of regional piano competition, it is not. This is the real deal. This is one of the top competitions in the world. And also, if you feel like you're going to come to something where you're going to have some sort of light garden music, also not. These are serious pieces of music
Right.
in a seriously professional environment. And my advice to you, if this is your first time, is let it wash over you without any preconceived notion. My only piece of advice, and I'm a very practical man, is almost every piano concerto in the world is 30 to 40 minutes long. Plan your restroom breaks accordingly. That's always my advice to people who's
Just
going to the
right.
concert hall. If you
Jeremy Clark,
that,
everyone, President CEO of CH Financial,
the giver of practical
the
advice.
giver
Thank
of
you,
practical advice.
Phil, and thank you. I know we just met today for the first time, but I feel like you're an old friend of mine, and thank you for having me here today.
I really appreciate it. Thanks so much, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Bye for now. You're listening to the Open Lid podcast by Honens. I'm pianist Philip Chu. Thank you for being here. Special thanks to Wolfen Financial for the support of this podcast production. Iman Habibi is an Iranian-Canadian composer and pianist whose music moves between cultures and continents. Praised for his technical mastery combined with musical and cultural literacy, what a great quote, his works have been commissioned by major ensembles including the little-known Boston, Philadelphia, and Toronto Symphony Orchestras, performed at venues such as Carnegie Hall, Tanglewood, and the Canadian Opera Company. He's also half of Piano Pinnacle, the prize-winning duo with his wife, Deborah Grimmett. This October, Habibi's music will serve as a barometer for the next generation of pianists. As the commissioned composer for the Honens International Piano Competition, his new work, Fracture, will challenge our semifinalists to grapple with something entirely new, a piece they're going to have to make their own under the intense pressure of the competition stage. I'm very happy to have Iman with me today to share with us his inspirations for the work, maybe give us a little hint of what audiences might expect to hear. And I want to know if he's truly, truly ready. Iman, are you ready to hear your piece performed 10 times in a row on stage this coming October?
Absolutely. Well, it's a pleasure to be with you today. Yeah, it's a fascinating experience to hear a piece of music performed over and over again, but to hear it in such quick succession, it will be overwhelming for sure. And yeah, especially to hear it for the first time and then so many times with so many different interpretations. Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. I've never had that experience before.
Do you have any fears for your music? Do you have any concerns that it's, I don't know, like I have to imagine a piece of music that's being put under such a glaring spotlight?
Yeah, absolutely. But less so for a piano piece, since it's my instrument. If it's for a different instrument and you're hearing it for a first time under such high stakes, and yeah, that's nerve-wracking. Since I've played this at the piano myself and I played it as I wrote it, I have a better understanding of what it sounds like. I have a fairly good understanding of what it will sound like, but I know it's going to have a lot more life when they play it. So I'm definitely looking forward to hearing that.
Do you get a vote as in terms of that performance of their piece, or is that left to the jury?
I've been told that they'll listen to me, but I'm not sure if I actually get a vote, or I can probably influence the decision a little bit, but I don't think I have the final say.
And so Fracture, you know, it brings to mind lots of different things, and especially for a piece written in 2025. Can you share with us a little bit about the inspiration for the title or for the work itself?
I mean, I'd say at its heart, like most other pieces that I write, it's an act of storytelling, right? So it's about, it tries to move us, to transform us, and it does that by presenting different musical ideas like characters in a story, and tries to build a world around them and transform them, take them through different dramatic situations. As you say, it was early 2025. You know, there are two places that I can really call home. One is Iran, where when I was born and raised, I was there until I was 17. And then the other one is Canada. And both these places were under existential threats. I was quite literally watching my childhood neighborhoods being bombed just a couple months ago. The streets that I walked as a teenager to go to school, I saw a bomb dropped on one of those streets. I mean, this is frightening to see. And then Canada was going through its own existential threat with its southern neighbors. And then all of this is, as you know, I'm very passionate about advocating for climate justice and finding musical ways to talk about that. And all of this, I feel, is happening under the umbrella of climate change. I mean, Canada is a place of interest because we have so much of the world's fresh water. And Iran is, of course, a place of extreme geopolitical interest, is really the channel between Asia and Europe. It's right in the middle. So it's a frightening world that we live in. And for me to in the place that I am, and seeing that the worlds that I'm a part of, and the world at large, and having a young child, and just imagining what future is going to be like for him. And then AI was the other thing, that there's an AI revolution happening at the same time. And a lot of people think about the threat of AI in a kind of science fiction sort of way, and that is certainly an important aspect of it. That's the threat, and the cybersecurity aspect of it, and the potential weaponization of it, but also just the sheer amount of resources that it's going to take to fuel this thing, the amount of electricity and power and energy that we're going to need, and the consumption. And consumption can't be decoupled from like the energy consumption of the world. Like, we're already consuming as much as 1.8 planets. It's frightening to think of all of that, and what kind of world we'll be living in. So Fracture is about those kinds of cracks.
Is a light piece of music about a birthday party.
I try to be hopeful, so it does end on a hopeful note. I don't know if you've seen the score. Have you seen the score?
No, I haven't seen the score.
Okay.
No.
Okay. I'm not sure if the score is public, like everyone's allowed to access it, or if just the
I
candidates
doubt it.
can see it.
I think only the candidates can see it, and I'm sure they'll make an arrangement with you about what that looks like after.
I try to be hopeful, even in the darkest of times. Maybe I get that from Beethoven. I was very inspired by Beethoven as kind of a philosopher, the kind of approach that he had to life. Like in the darkest moments he was filled with hope.
Mm-hmm.
But I think having hope allows us to act. Like if you lose hope, that leads to inaction, and that can't be. That just can't be. We have to do whatever is in our power.
After hearing your wonderful description of the work and the things that were on your mind, it brings to mind for me the question that I always have, and that I've asked some of the candidates as well, like art and politics, art and social issues. Is it an artist's job today? Is it a responsibility of them to be involved in all these things?
For me, the answer is yes, of course. The way I see things, it's like we're on a bus, and the bus is speeding towards a cliff, right? And the driver is either sleeping at the wheel, or I don't know, they want to go down the cliff. I don't know what the problem with the driver is, but there's a few people on the bus who are aware that there's a cliff up front. We can't see it, but we're going to go down the cliff. How can you not yell at the driver and say, put the brake on, stop? How can you not do that? I don't see any choice but to say that, we need to take a different approach. We need to do something different. If I have a platform to speak, this is a platform. My music is a platform. A certain number of people are going to hear it. And so you never know as an artist when the thing that you have to say will reach that kind of stage. So you need to always actively be putting out your message. You need to always shine your light. And then one day, one of those lights that you shine will shine bright enough to reach a person of influence. And I also get a lot of backlash. And I think,
of course,
that's maybe part of what a lot of us fear. I've had concerts where my music has been performed, and it's a piece about climate change, and the main sponsor of the concert is absolutely furious about it. And so be it. I feel like I've reached a point where I'm not afraid of that so much, and not everybody has that kind of leverage. So we all have a capacity for how loud we can speak and how much we can say, and do what is in your power and the capacity that you have.
For these artists, many of them who are still early mid-career, there are industry demands, and there are people to not piss off, and there are
yeah. So we live in a broken system, and there's so many different parts that are broken, and there's so many different connections between the different agents of these systems that are broken. And if you're a small part of the system, which many of us are, you'll gradually, as you think about it, you'll gradually start to notice areas where you can push a little bit. And all you need to do is to just push a little bit in those areas. And you'll be surprised how much of a ripple effect it will have, and how you will start to find like-minded people and like-minded spaces where you can like what you say will really resonate and go further. But put yourself out there, put your opinions out there, because if you don't put your opinions out there, you just exist in a vacuum.
Do you have a particular piece of advice for these pianists? I mean, I think you already actually gave quite a few. Do you think there's like a particular skill set that you think like a lot of early career musicians are lacking that will serve them well if they think longer term?
The two things that I see missing in so many incredibly talented musicians is persistence or resilience. It's a tough industry and you will be judged. I mean, just the whole concept of something like a competition where you go on a stage and there's a bunch of people who are veterans and incredibly respected in the industry, and their purpose sitting there is to judge you. Mm-hmm. It's frightening. It's just a frightening experience. So you're going to have rejections. You're going to be turned down. You're going, mean things are going to be said about you on the internet and elsewhere and by critics. I mean, I've had some really, really strong criticisms of pieces of music that have been extremely successful in practice, but they've just been butchered by some critics. If you don't have the kind of resilience, the thick skin to deal with that kind of thing, it'll break you down very quickly. I think those are a tough skin. It's what it takes in this industry.
At least 3 of our competitors are also, like you, composer pianists. And so they have programmed their own works into their semifinal rounds. How do you feel about that? Bold choice? Big, bad move?
It's absolutely the right choice. You have to do that. If you write music, play your music. And the main reason is that, I think the prize of these competitions is of secondary importance. The most important part of it is that your artistic voice is going to be heard by so many different people. You're being heard on a big platform that a lot of composers, pianists, conductors maybe are listening to. One of my big breaks as a pianist and composer was that I was playing at the finals of a piano competition. I think I was 21, 22. I made it to the finals of this piano competition. I played one of my own pieces, a very small piece, like a 3-minute prelude. Mm-hmm. And I didn't win the competition, but one of the judges happened to be a conductor. I met him months later. He said, I was very impressed by your piece. How about you write your first piano concerto for my orchestra? And I mean, that kind of took me down the path of composition. And it was a very happy decision for me, let's say.
Back to Fracture for just a moment. Are you trying to cover certain challenges for these pianists also? Was there like a technical side to what you were doing?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I was asked to make it technically difficult. I think that's a secret. So sorry to all the semifinalists. And another thing that I was asked to do was to add an element of improvisation, which I do quite often in my music. I like to work with improvisers and I like to give performers an opportunity to improvise. What I did is I give the performer a lot of freedom. So they have a lot of freedom with, for example, articulation and pedal. When you play something like Mozart, Beethoven, Debussy, Chopin, as I say those names, there's like a knob in the back of my head that goes click, click, click. And there's all this stylistic baggage, Yeah, and I'm sure as a pianist you feel that. There's all this stylistic baggage that goes with all of them and this sound world.
One day, Iman, someone's going to be talking about you. Or another composer will be saying, well, when you say Habibi, my brain goes click, 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 and then there's a sound world there. But go on.
So that's what I was going to say. So when you say Habibi right now, at least, there's so much freedom. There's just an open world in front of you. You can create the sound world that as a pianist or any instrument that plays my music, you can create the sound world that you think is my sound world. And that's so liberating. And you're a part of not only the creation process of that piece, but you're a part of the creation process of that composer, I think. What an exciting thing. But to the technical challenges, it is hard, but it's not frustratingly hard, I hope. So I hope that it's rewarding difficult. It's not frustratingly difficult. At least that was my aim. So if anything in it is frustratingly difficult, I hope the candidates will let me know and I'd be happy to change it. It's never meant to be that.
When people play your music, when they receive a new score of yours and they're going to prepare, what makes you happy about what they do with your music? What do you not like when someone takes your score and does something with it? What are you less pleased about?
Well, I don't like that knob that switches in your head to going from composer to composer. So one of the worst things you can do is to try to trace or to place the music to somebody else. I'm gonna play this part like Mozart because it sounds Mozartian, and It's certainly not how I would approach it. I like people to come into the music with an open mind and with an openness to world building. Essentially, the hardest part of my job as a composer is world building. We can give you characters. I can give you melodic lines, but I don't have enough time to build a world for you because you don't come with a preconceived idea of what my music is like. If Mozart writes something outrageously dissonant that is completely out of style with what he did what was done at the time, that tells you something. That becomes a part of the narrative. If I write something incredibly dissonant, you just immediately say, well, that's the kind of thing he writes. I don't have that background already built on which I can tell a story. So as a performer, your number one hardest job is to create that world and then allow the story to shine through that world that you create. I think that's the hardest part.
What do you find is the most attractive trait of a musician?
It's like any human being. It would be kindness, I like to make music with people that I like, and I think the music will reflect that. The best pieces of music I've written are for my dearest friends. So,
what do you hope an audience member, a listener, takes away after hearing one of your pieces, after hearing a work by Iman Habibi?
I'd like it to be a reevaluation of what is important to us and what is dear to us. And what's really important to you is different from what's really important to me. And there are different levels of priorities. There's priorities at a micro level and a macro level, depending on what time horizon you're looking at and all of that. But a rethinking of what is dear to you. And that's what this piece is about. Things that are fracturing, and through those fractures, through those cracks, you get to see what's inside and what's at the heart and what's important.
Iman, thank you so much for your thoughtfulness and your generosity today. I really appreciate it. So nice to chat with you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye. That was Iranian-Canadian composer Iman Habibi, whose commissioned work, Fractures, will be an important element on the recitals for all 10 of our semifinalists. You're listening to the Open Lid podcast by Honens. I'm Philip Chu. Thanks for listening.
So I feel like it's impossible to leave the performer out of it. I actually don't want to leave the performer out of it. I go to performances not only for the music, but I go for the performer. I want to hear what this person has to say about the music.
That's Chae-young Park, pianist and Honens semifinalist. She started piano lessons at age 6 and was soon expected by her teachers to practice several hours a day. Tantrums and tears ensued. I'm sure you get it. Her parents assured her she could stop at any time and they'd support her no matter what. Chae-young kept practicing. Let's hear more from her now. Chae-young, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Phil.
It's my pleasure, Chae-young. We are so excited to be hearing you in the upcoming competition at Honens in October. How do you feel about it?
I feel very excited. It is a competition that I have obviously been aware of for many, many years. And I've had friends and people I look up to and admire and respect a lot be a part of the competition. And I think Honens is very special because it looks for a complete, artist. And there is almost an equal amount of focus on chamber music and orchestral solo playing, as well as the solo recitals. So I find that really important and valuable. And I think the fact that it's only 10 of us going to Calgary also puts more spotlight on each of us, which is always very nice. Yeah, so I feel like there's nothing to lose by going. I already feel honored to be a part of the top 10, and I am looking forward to being in Calgary for the first time.
Oh, well, Calgary's very excited to have you. And now maybe you could help some of our listeners understand, for those who don't have a lot of previous experience with competitions, why is it that having only 10 arrive in Calgary, why is that a special thing?
Well, because most competitions have usually between like 30 and 40 pianists come in for the first live round. And obviously there are benefits to that as well. But I think with having 10 pianists, it allows us to perform for a longer period of time before we either get eliminated or passed on. So there is just a little bit more room for individual attention and for us to just perform as much as possible, even if, we don't make it to the next round.
Not only that, but the opportunity to play with Rachel Mercer, the wonderful cellist who will be there with you, and
Yeah,
and
exactly. You can just showcase much more variety. I
mhm.
think in the 2 hours of music that we'll be playing in just the semifinal round, and obviously working with Rachel will be really wonderful. So I'm looking forward to it.
Can you talk a little bit about your particular love for playing with others? Because, for a lot of our listeners who may or may not know, like the life of a pianist, at least I can speak from my experience and certainly many of my colleagues, it's a pretty lonely life for a long time. It's basically us, our parents maybe yelling at us. It depends. We have different backgrounds. We have our teacher, and then maybe occasionally, you had studio class with your other peers, but rarely did you play together. And then even more rarely, did you have a chance to play with other people? So what was your experience like, and how did you get into it, and why do you love it?
For pianists, like our life is quite solitary. We practice alone. We perform alone most of the times on stage. And my particular circumstances were even more solitary in that I moved to Kansas when I was 10 years old with my family. I love Kansas and I spent all of my teenage years here. And my family is still in Kansas and I'm visiting them right now, actually, in Lawrence, Kansas. So it's really nice. But Kansas is not the epicenter of the musical scene in the world. And so I didn't have like many musical like peers around my age growing up. I mean, there were benefits to that as well, because even though, there might not have been as many opportunities as compared to like New York or LA, but if there was an opportunity, I would get it because there weren't that many like very, very serious young pianists. So I am grateful for the amount of attention that I had in Kansas, but it did leave me feeling alone at times. And I started to discover not feeling alone, like while I played chamber music for the first time. And because I started pursuing music, seriously since an early age, as many musicians do, I worked very hard and it was very serious and I put a lot of pressure on myself. I progressed a lot, but also at some point in my teenage years, I became more and more afraid of the stage. Because I wanted it to be, like a perfect performance.
So perfect, right? I mean, yeah, that amount of pressure you put on yourself, right? Of
Right,
course.
right. So I had, very high expectations and high standards for myself. So then, like, my relationship with music just became more stressful. And when I went to a German music festival for the first time in undergrad, I just remember the feeling of connecting with others through music and feeling so understood and so seen, like without words and just through playing. It was almost like they understood me like better than if I were to express it verbally. And that feeling was so special to me. And when we performed, I distinctly remember that it was the first time in I guess a long time that I felt not alone on stage.
Yeah.
And I cherished that so much. And so now, like, I carry that over to my solo performances as well. Chamber music is what helped me find that way of connecting with others. Through chamber music, I understood what it feels like to connect with others. And I realized that that's my passion in music. Like I want to feel connected with people. And I think that just opened the door for me to connect with people, like in whatever medium, I'm playing.
So I read in one interview, you were asked about the advice you would give to young people. And this was, I think, a few years back. And you said, oh, I'm still young. I'm trying to find my own path. But the thing that you really stressed at the time was that finding a teacher that you trusted was one of the most important things you could imagine. And because, as you said, the path is not something you can just research or get answers online. That having a mentor to guide you and lead you in directions both musically and pianistically and even career-wise is very important. So I'd be really curious. The teachers I have listed for you principally are Jack Weinrock and, of course, Robert McDonald. And I'd love to, do you have like one or even two principal ideas you felt that you've taken away from your time with these teachers?
That's a really, really interesting question and a great one. With each of my two teachers, Dr. Weinrock and Mr. McDonald, I spent 8 years with each of them. And I was very fortunate to have as much time as I did with each of them. And with Dr. Weinrock, he has this infectious love of music. And the way that he approaches and like plays music, it's impossible to listen to it and like not smile. So I think I got a sense of joy, and also he's very interested in like colors. So that I would say were the two things that I gained and took away from my time at Rowan Rock. With Mr. McDonald, he has like the sharpest ears in the business, I think.
Speaking of chamber music greatness, not only, but particularly, right?
Yeah.
What ears and what sensitivity?
Yes, there's no one like him. And the amount of detailed kind of listening and the playing and the specificity, it's sort of unparalleled. Like I haven't really met many other musicians who mirror Mr. McDonald's like level of hyper awareness and listening. So with my time with him at Juilliard, I gained a much greater sense of listening, I would say, listening in a very, very specific way. And then he also is amazing with promoting ease of physical movement, the keyboard, and like that tying with the musical like freedom.
What do you hope a student would say, here is the thing I took away from Ms. Park's teaching?
That's funny.
How to practice better.
Well, I feel like I'm still trying to figure that out myself. Yeah. I think I care a lot about like storytelling in music. And so I prioritize what the listening experience will be like for the audience. With my time on stage, especially like more recently, I pull from that experience and just try to imagine like what will be like if the student took that on stage and how it will sound in the hall. I would love for my students to take with them aspects of the lessons that I learned from both Mr. McDonald and Dr. Weinrock. So from Mr. McDonald, the kind of listening and the ease of the comfort level on the keyboard that allows you to like make your own decisions with a score. I think that's unnegotiable. You have to have like a comfortable like technique in order to do the things that you want. Also, I, like Dr. Weinrock taught me, I love exploring colors, and I would love the students to have as much like variety of colors and explore different atmospheres and moods and characters and be able to tell a story with that.
When I read about your playing, when I listen to your playing, first of all, but also when I read about what critics say about your playing and journalists say about your playing, the one thing that comes through over and over and over again is that you are a pianist who doesn't play a single note without thought. You said you were quite serious about it as a child. Like, where did that come from? What does it mean to you to have that kind of approach?
I am very, very flattered by that comment, because that is what I strive for. So then the fact that it is coming across as very encouraging to me. I think it doesn't come like easily to me. I mean, I work pretty hard and like I'm not saying that you're telling me that I don't. I don't, but I don't consider myself a child prodigy or like a musical genius of anything like that, actually. I mean, I acknowledge that I have talent. Part of my personality is that I am like all in kind of a person, and like I get invested pretty deeply into a thing or a person, or maybe it's a partially Korean too. Like Koreans tend to be quite passionate, and we tend to go all in, and we don't leave anything behind. And I think that kind of single-mindedness is what's coming across like in performance as well. Like I want the listeners to be hyper focused. I think that's when the magic happens. It's not when you're half-heartedly, half distractedly listening to something, but when you're just like all in it, all invested, and like all of your focus and concentration and attention are there 100%, then that's when you can really like get into the heart of music and go on that journey together with a performer. So I try my best to create that kind of very intensely focused atmosphere in my performance.
There's that pitfall when they focus on you, right? When there is also a kind of danger zone of you becoming the center of attention over the music that you're trying to draw attention to.
Interesting. This might be a little bit controversial, but people often say that like music comes first and you're only like a servant to the music. But I sometimes have a hard time with that because I see everything as an interpretation. Even if you meticulously analyze the score and like do all the markings as precisely as possible, it's still one's way of interpreting all the markings on the score. So I feel like it's impossible to leave the performer out of it. I actually don't want to leave the performer out of it. I go to performances like not only for the music, but I go for the performer. Like I want to hear what this person has to say about the music. Like it's impossible to disassociate with the player. It's an inseparable sort of dynamic, I guess.
If tonight I could get you a ticket to any pianist living, let's say, who would you hope it was, and why?
Martha Argerich.
Good choice. All right, we can be friends, Chaeyoung.
She is just a miracle.
Yeah. And also, her personality is inseparable from the music she plays. There's nothing objective or even proclaiming or even pretending to be remotely sort of just a conduit or just like a pure lens, right?
And yet, she plays all the music differently. It's not that she has a singular approach to everything. And like, you hear that something is Mozart, you hear that something is Schumann or whatever, but you also hear that it's Martha. And I love that.
What is your pre-performance preparation? Try saying that 3 times fast. What's that going to look like before Honens?
In the weeks leading up to an important event, I am practicing a lot. I also schedule a lot of run-throughs, as many as I can. And I record myself a lot because I am often surprised more than I would like by how I sound. So I try to lessen the gap as much as possible.
If something's not going well, how do you usually react first? Are you angry, frustrated, calm?
Not calm. Definitely not calm. Last on the list.
Do you slam on the keys? I used to slam. I used to go, just slam on the keys.
Yes, I slam very gently on the keys. And then I, get sad and I get all dejected and I, feel like I can't do it. But then my friends tell me I can do it. And so then I feel like I can do it. And then I try again. And I think it's very human.
What do you do immediately after a big performance? Like, what will you do after your first semifinal recital when you get off stage, or maybe your second semifinal recital?
Second semifinal.
Because you'll probably go practice after the first.
Yes, exactly. After the first one, I'll go practice. With the second one, I usually like to have something, like eat something nice. I'm a
Korean
foodie.
food?
I'm a foodie, so yeah, Korean food is always nice. Like some nice dessert is nice, like a good restaurant is nice. I'm not, well, I'm picky about the quality of food, but I am not picky about the cuisine as much.
Will you rush to the hotel or your billet probably and watch the live stream of your performance? Like, are you like dying to hear, or are you like, no, I don't want to hear it till?
It really depends on the performance. If I thought that the performance went well, then I am curious to listen back just a bit. Like, it's rare for me to like sit down and like listen to the whole thing, like the day that I played it. But if I wasn't happy with the performance, then I need some days to prepare myself to listen.
To brace yourself for that.
Yes.
Impact, the confirmation, the possible confirmation. Who was a composer that you would love to meet, living or dead? So
I feel like someone like Brahms would be easy to talk to.
If you could commission a work from any composer, living or dead, who would it be?
Like, well, I've been playing some Scriabin sonata, like Black Mass sonata recently, so Scriabin is on my mind. Like a Scriabin violin sonata, I feel like would be really cool. If there was a piece of classical music you could erase from the standard repertoire, so from existence, no one would ever have heard of it, no one will think of it, you'll never hear it again, it'll never be requested again, what would that be? That's very cruel. I'm not the biggest fan of Bloch's music. You would just wipe out his entire output? No, not entire. Not entire output. But it's definitely not my favorite, even though I played his piano quintet. Well, can I say a portion of a piece? Sure, yeah. So, okay, I've played Bach's F sharp minor toccata, and in there is like this page, I think maybe even 2 pages, where it's just a sequence for like 20 bars. and it's just unnecessary. Really unnecessary. And the funny story about like this piece is that I got to know of it through Glenn Gould's recording of it piece, and I loved the beginning. I loved the slow section, and I loved the fast fugue. And then like this sequential part came, and fine. And like I don't remember like being bothered by it during my first listening. And when I started working on it, I was like surprised to find this like endless sequential passage. So then I checked the recording again, and Glenn Gould just cut like 10 bars of it. Yeah, that's why I didn't realize that this piece had this endless like sequence. What do you hope audiences take away from one of your performances, from a Chae-young Park performance? I want them to experience colors and go on this musical journey together and feel like you experienced something and you're a different person because you experienced something. Chae-young, thank you so much for your time today. This has been lovely. I feel like you know everything about me now. I'm sure there's much more to you. Chae-young, have a wonderful summer. Bye for now. Yeah, thanks, Phil. That was pianist Chae-young Park, Honens semifinalist, and you're going to catch her recitals on October 17th and 20th. Her 2 semifinal rounds, where she'll be performing works by Unsik Chin, Messiaen, Beethoven, as well as Anna Sokolovich and Debussy.
Honestly, the only thing I'm attracted to is energy. I don't care. Yeah, I don't care about wrong notes, phrasings. sound. It was, I maybe cared about it before when I was in a constant search of those elements. But I realized that I can listen to a wonderful performance where I can say absolutely nothing.
That was pianist Anastasia Vorotnaya, one of our upcoming Honens semifinalists. She recalls having a wild and mischievous childhood growing up in a small city east of Moscow. She rollerbladed with abandon, played football with the boys, and loved roaring up and down a keyboard. The piano, turns out, was a constant and reassuring companion. She says, I love touching and caressing the piano as if it were a living being, because in many ways it truly is. It feels as though I open my soul to the piano in a way I never have and never will with anyone else. Powerful words. Let's hear more from her now. Anastasia, I'm so pleased to welcome you here. Thank you so much for joining me, and congratulations on being one of the semifinalists for the upcoming Honens competition.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Such a pleasure. Where do I find you today?
I'm based in Madrid, but now I decided to visit my family in Moscow since I'm rarely here. So now I'm in Moscow.
Your summer up until now, how is it going? Has it been super busy? Have you had some time off?
I could have a little bit of time off. Thankfully, it's pretty rare, but finally I could rest a little bit. So I'm just enjoying this time.
In Madrid, how long have you been there for now?
Oh, it's a difficult question because actually, first time I moved there, it was 2012. I was just 16, 17, and I started my education there. I started my studies in Reina Sofia under Dmitry Bashkirov. So I lived there for 7 years. Then I moved to US. I studied with Stanislav Yudenich for another 3 years. And finally, I was just thinking where I want to actually live, I immediately thought of Madrid because it's actually for me the best city. Spain is the best country I want to live. It was the best decision I've taken.
Can I ask you some of your favorite things about Madrid? I've never been, actually.
Oh, you should definitely come. First of all, people are just amazing. They were so helpful because first time when I moved there, I didn't speak English, Spanish, nada, because I was learning German in my school. So I was a difficult child, abandoned there. I couldn't understand how to open bank account, how to do my residentship, anything. And people were so helpful. They were so nice to me, so warming and welcoming. I fell in love with the atmosphere around, with the people. And in general, this country is so beautiful. The food is amazing. The atmosphere is just great. Everyone lives their best life. Everyone is smiling, having fun. And it's just really great place to live in.
You know, by the time our listeners will be hearing these episodes, we're going to be already slowly entering the fall here in Canada, and so I could just let you know they are all rolling their eyes, or they're booking their flights already.
They should
to Spain. So you mentioned the school, the Reina Sofia, where you went to study with Bashkirov and also Uedinich in the U.S. So I'd be curious, does something come to mind when you think of your time with Bashkirov, your time with Uedinich, and any other teachers before you? In fact, I'd love to hear.
Of course. Actually, if we are going to talk about the structure, concept of the structure, I think the concept of this meaning gave me my first school teacher, Tatiana Bobchinskaya, who actually made me learn almost all Bach's music. I mean, not all, but I played
I'm sorry,
a lot of
you're
Bach.
not that old, Anastasia.
No, but I played really for my age at this time. I played all the time Bach, and it really helped at this young age to build up this idea in my brain, for example. So I think I was very lucky to start with a teacher like that who gave me this proper approach and concept of thinking, structural thinking. If we are going to talk about Bashkir, first thing that just comes to my mind is a sound projection. He gave me so many new thoughts and tools of how to project sound, how to be heard, and also how to sometimes use some unique, tricks, let's say like that. So
for sound production?
Not only for sound, that's ideas too. Sound was his main priority, and it actually was one of the reasons I wanted to study with him, because his sound is just magic from the first note to the last, and it was breathtaking. And Stanislav Yudenich, he actually helped me to open up. So basically, what he was trying to help me with is to not be afraid to do mistakes, to maybe not not be liked by everyone, but at least to be present, because at some stage of my life, especially when you go to competitions, and some competitions you win, but many competitions I wasn't winning at all. And I was trying to put myself into this perfect box, of being perfect, like just playing as I should play, even though I really wanted to do something differently, but I knew that it will trigger maybe jury members or someone else, because it's not how it's supposed to be, and I knew it
Right.
perfectly. So I'm very grateful to Stanislav, because he saw that I want to do something different, but I was trying to put myself into some kind of a box. That's why he was really making me believe in myself again.
What is that balance like between, I don't want to say hierarchy, that's sort of the word that always comes up, but rather, what is the balance for you between composer, the piece, the context of that piece, the audience, what you've been taught, and you?
I think first goes the composer. And I will be lying if I'll put myself last spot, like at the last place, because basically when I play piece, I only think about what this composer meant, what he wanted to say, what he wanted to tell us, and I try to interpret myself into this era, into this style. But then there's anyway part of me who is processing it. Maybe it's processing it not in a authentic way. I have no idea. Maybe I'm absolutely wrong, but unless I actually feel it with my core, uh, I cannot perform it. That's why I actually stopped playing some of the composers, because one day I just woke up and I realized that yes, I like the music, but I don't feel myself in this music. I don't feel myself saying something with the composer. Of course, it can change. It depends on the time and what you're going through as a musician, as a person. That's why it's pretty tricky, and that's why I try to always change my repertoire to be in alliance with myself and with the music I perform.
Do you have a composer that comes to mind that right now you admire so much, you love their music, but as you said, to play it doesn't have that resonance for you?
Chopin, for example. Yeah, I haven't been playing Chopin for 7 years at all, like at all. I don't know. It's just it's what I told you before. Maybe before I turned 20, Chopin was always in my repertoire. I have CDs with Chopin. I was performing so many pieces, like most of the pieces by Chopin I performed. And just one day I woke up and I realized that I cannot play it anymore. It's like I like when someone else playing Chopin, but not me.
Thank you for that honesty. It's so funny because the way both pianists and non-pianists talk about Chopin, it feels almost sacrilegious, from a certain view to say that. I think it takes a lot of confidence actually to come out and say, no, I don't think there's a resonance for me, and that's okay,
Yes.
right? I think that's a
Yeah,
very
it's absolutely okay, and I think it's good to acknowledge when you're ready, when you're not ready. Maybe I'm not gonna play Chopin ever again because it's just I lost the capability, I lost this sensitivity. I don't know, but maybe it will wake up again in me, and
right.
it will change. But the main priority for me is not to play what is not resonating with you. It's just you're fully in yourself, you're fully in the audience, and it just doesn't make any sense for me, at least.
When you open a new score, what do you look for first? How do you take in a new score?
If it's known piece, first I listen some recordings. I try to find good performances. I listen. I try to think of this music. I try to feel it. And then I start to learn it. And I have a pretty weird way of learning. For example, pieces as chamber music or concertos with orchestra. Usually I learn it right with the orchestra or chamber group. I just turn on my speaker and I start learning like that. It somehow gives energy boost for me, and notes just learn itself on its own very fast. First I listen, then I try to come up with my own concept and thoughts.
One of the things I used to do growing up, if I was learning a concerto, the first thing I would do is record, and it used to be on tape, like cassette tape. I would record the second piano, like the orchestra part first, and then start to play along with it.
No, it's actually a very great method. And with orchestra, it really helps actually for some of our listeners if they struggle with some pieces. I don't know, at least for me, it works wonders because somehow one of the most difficult concertos for me turned out to be Rachmaninoff first. And I remember it was already like 1 month before a concert, and I could clearly see that third movement still was so uncomfortable. And I was just constantly playing with Rachmaninoff himself. I was just turning on my speaker on the highest volume. And then after playing with him, maybe let's say for a week, I was just running through with Rachmaninoff himself, like let's say once, twice per day for a week. And in 1 week, it was ready. Because when you play with someone who is maybe twice faster and you think you cannot do it, somehow when you see it, when you hear it, your fingers do it. So your brain thinks it
Totally.
can't, but it can because we are not aware of how many wonderful things we are capable of. It's just our fear of failure actually takes over so many times in our life. But it's what I see every day. Actually, many people can do unbelievable things. Just the only thing that is missing, they have to believe in it.
What else do you listen for in other pianists? I mean, it could be musicians in general, but this is a piano competition, so I'm curious about that piano focus.
Honestly, the only thing I'm attracted to is energy.
Energy.
Yeah, I don't care about wrong notes, phrasings, sound. It was I maybe cared about it before when I was in a constant search of those elements. You see, I still am in the constant search, but I realized that I can listen to a wonderful performance where I can say absolutely nothing because it's just brilliant from the first note to the last, but that's it. It's like, okay, it's great, amazing, and I feel empty inside. I see that also people enjoy it, but somehow I just leave the concert hall and I leave with no inspiration, let's say.
What does your practice room look like before a competition?
It depends. Many factors play a role. For example, if I have a lot of work and some jobs at the same time, it's getting a little bit stressed, and then yes, I feel anxious, trying to do everything possible. But when I'm already in a competition, usually I'm just basically very focused, concentrated, and more or less calm.
And if something isn't working, do you get angry, frustrated, passionate, or do you stay calm, methodical?
Oh, no, if something isn't working, I definitely get super nervous and anxious, and I'm a little bit psycho. Like, I actually this kind of person who wants to do everything perfectly. Like, I was studying, my grades were always the highest, and I don't know, I have this obsession of being a good girl since I was a child. But it actually plays a role in my working process. So when I work, when I practice, when I prepare something to at least try to be perfect in all possible senses. But when I'm on stage, I just forget about it because when I'm on stage, it can be perfectly done technically, let's say. But if I feel that I just played empty notes, for me it's the most horrible performance of all, and I hate what I've done. But if I'm on stage and I feel this energy from me flowing, and that I have something to say, and now I'm in a perfect state, emotional state to give. I don't care whether I forgot something, or whether some passages didn't work out. I don't care at all. So for me, this is while I'm on stage, for me, this is the most important thing.
Okay, I'm going to ask a question you've probably been asked a lot. One composer that you would have loved to meet or would like to meet, living or dead?
Okay, first would be Rachmaninoff. Then it would be Bach.
Mm-hmm.
Then for sure would be Chopin because I would have to say him sorry for not playing him. I would just have to apologize and maybe ask him for some advice.
Okay, and if you could commission a work from any composer, living or dead, who would you
Rachmaninoff.
And
Mettner.
And Mettner, right, of course.
Yes.
What kind of piece would you like from them?
From Mettner, I would love concerto.
Yes.
But maybe some weird style concerto, let's say maybe like 6 movements or I don't know, something. I think he would be great with because his forms are pretty interesting. They're
Already,
different
that's
and
right.
tricky already. Yeah, so I think he would be fascinated about it, about this idea. And about Rachmaninoff, I think I would ask him to compose another sonata, but in a more jazzy style.
Right, fourth concerto, like post emigration. Yeah, totally. Wouldn't that be so cool? I mean,
I think it would.
the fourth is already amazing.
Yeah.
If you couldn't play piano for a year, what would you do instead to stay alive artistically?
I mean, it happened to me already, not even one time. I was preparing for med school.
For you, it's not the artistic need only; it's a more human need. If you heal, then you feel more fulfilled. Is that right? I don't mean to put words in your mouth.
No. It's absolutely right. I can imagine myself without the music, and even though I was going through many troubles with my hands, and so I understand people that really have difficult time with no playing, with problems that not allows them to play. I can say that when you really love something, there's always a way. But what's really important, I think, is also to understand that maybe not all our dreams might come true. So we shouldn't have only one, but at least two. So if one doesn't work out, we always have a backup plan. That's why for me, before, when, for example, first time when I was 17, I had my problems with hands, and for me, it was the end of the world. And I couldn't imagine how I can live without music, what I will do. My life is over. That's why I actually found more things I'm attracted to. So now I don't have this fear anymore. It's not following me because I know that one way or another, I always have things I love in my life, and music will always be there, no matter if I will be on stage or not.
Yeah, for some people, of course, it could be such a great motivation, right? To tell oneself it must be this and in this way, but it could be so restricting, right? And so suffocating too without realizing it.
Yes, that's exactly that. And that was a problem with competitions. I remember that before, for me, it was a really goal to not to participate, but to win something. Like I should win only if I win, it means that I worth something. It was somehow put in my brain. And it's super destructive. It's really breaking you from inside out. And Honens will be my last competition because I actually, before I received a message from Honens, I was like, I'm done. I don't want to do competitions anymore. I'm done. I want to enjoy this life. I don't want to compete with anyone, and I want to do music this music that I want and nothing else. And then once I said it, I received.
Once you said it, the universe tested you.
Exactly. And since actually Honens is the first and only competition, at least in my life, where I could apply and write down the repertoire that I admire, and no one is trying to make me play what I don't want to play, or like obligatory works, you usually have to play some Bach, some Beethoven, some concertos that are required. I was like, okay, no, we cannot lose this possibility just because it's actually not even, I don't consider it even a competition. I just go there to perform recitals because I will be performing what I truly love.
I know the audiences will just love hearing you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Of course, it's my pleasure.
It's been a pleasure.
Good, I hope so. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day. Talk to you soon.
You too. Thank you. Bye.
Bye for now. That was pianist Anastasia Vorotnaya, whose semifinal rounds you are going to catch on October 17th and 20th, both live and on the live stream. She will be performing works by Franck, Ravel, Fanny Mendelssohn, Rachmaninoff, Bloch, and Bakevich. Once again, that's it for today's episode of Open Lid by Honens. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope you've been enjoying our time together so far. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, and share this podcast with your friends and family. You can also explore more events, competition updates, and a whole lot more at honens.com. That's HONENS.com. Open Lid is hosted by me, pianist Philip Chu, with special thanks to Jeremy Clark and Wolfson Financial for their support. Also a huge thanks to Simon McLeod. Incidentally, I'll be co-hosting the live stream of the 2025 Honens International Piano Competition alongside Carmen Morin, so please tune in for that. Until then, keep listening, keep playing loudly. And you know what'll help? Keep that lid wide open.